Bloomberg View columnist and CNN analyst Josh Rogan, who says he had a source in this room that George W. Bush said that when it comes to fighting ISIS, quote, in order to be an effective president, when you say something, you have to mean it, he said. You got to kill him. And that's not all he reportedly said. Doug Brinkley, let me bring you in, presidential historian at Rice University. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, how unprecedented is it, period, to have a former president criticize a president, especially a sitting president?
Well, it happens. I mean, Jimmy Carter used to beat up on Ronald Reagan regularly, and you can give many examples of it. But this was a very noticeable event in Las Vegas. George W. Bush has assiduously avoided finger pointing or criticizing President Obama. Something changed at the meeting with Sheldon Adelson there in Vegas, and it may be two factors. One, about a week ago, Colin Powell at the Kennedy Center, speaking for an MD Anderson fundraiser, basically criticized George W. Bush's old boss's Iraq and Afghanistan policy. And then on Saturday, President Obama maybe started the opening salvo of this feud by calling Bush a horrible, worst president of his lifetime and a joke, saying basically Dick Cheney ran the show. A few hours later in Vegas, the president made these comments.
So it's interesting that you say that. So do you think this is all part of this almost like ping-ponging of, criticisms back and forth at one another? Because, I mean, we're 2015. You have to know. President Bush has to know. This may be a private event, but these days, nothing's private, right?
You got it, exactly. And there's nothing startling about what George W. Bush said. It was a neocon view of foreign policy. But the very fact of the matter is that he took the gloves off and didn't just swipe out Obama one or two times, about 3 or 4 times, according to the Bloomberg story, which basically saying that Al-Qaeda is still alive, that ISIL is the new Al-Qaeda, and this president is making us weak. I thought it was very strong words for George W. Bush, and it'll be curious to see how the White House responds to it. If they do, they'll probably try not to answer.
If they even touch it, right? But you say gloves off. I mean, most people say absolutely this is criticism. It's the first in 6 years. Here's how Ari Fleischer puts it. Ari Fleischer, the Bush's spokesperson back in the day. So CNN reached out to him, told CNN that President Bush did not directly criticize President Obama. Ari Fleischer says Mr. Bush simply answered questions about how he would handle today's top foreign policy issues. How do you read that?
No, I don't think that's accurate. I mean, here you have George W. Bush basically quoting Lindsey Graham, talking about what a boondoggle things are. In other words, saying, I agree with Lindsey Graham, who said this. He was clearly trying not to leave an ugly soundbite, there. And this wasn't done on a talk show on TV. It was ostensibly done in private. But there would be leakage. And the real point here is about Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush was in Florida. He did not go to Las Vegas. Yeah.
But so on the Jeb note, assuming he's going to throw his hat in the ring here, do you think there would have been a conversation? Like, what would the conversation have looked like behind the scenes? Because I'm wondering if George W. Bush knew what he was going to say, knew he would take this jab at President Obama, and how this might play out when and if Jeb says, I'm running.
Well, I think that's part of all this. I think George W. Bush was there to let Sheldon Adelson know my brother is a neocon. In his remarks, he said, I'm probably an albatross around my brother's neck. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to help him. But I am a great friend of Israel, and I'm tough on the war on terror, and so is my brother, Jeb. He was playing the surrogate for Jeb Bush and trying to get Jewish American voters on the side of Jeb, even though he wasn't there for the Adelson meeting.
Douglas Brinkley, thank you.
Thanks.
Coming up next, after